Build I-DLE's nightmare version of Put It Straight features red lights, dresses, and lipstick, backgrounds of water and lightning, and a successful reimagining of what was already one of the best songs of the year. Let's discuss these in reverse order in this special November episode, because November is the best time for spooky concepts. But alas, Sean had failed to account for Hofstadter's law, or at least to account for enough recursive levels of it, and editing for this video lasted into December. But let's get back to it. SWComposer breaks down the K. First, let's look at the original version of the song to understand what makes it work. It is overall quite an austere song, with many of the timbres quite dark, just a few chords, and many of the chord voicings favoring fifths and fourths. And the harmony in Put It Straight is overall still based on thirds, but several of the chord voicings emphasize fourths and fifths, and by choosing those voicings, Soyeon and Houdini make them sound starker and colder. Let's compare a hypothetical version that emphasizes thirds more with a version closer to what was actually used. The one with more thirds is still nice, they don't sound bad, but it is warmer than the one with more fourths and fifths, and the colder, more austere voicings are part of what gives Put It Straight its distinctive sound. It's a risky song to go for a dramatic staging of. Because the understated style is so central to the original version, there is a very real risk that making it flashy or dramatic could make it lose its quiet intensity. But Soyeon and June figured out a way to make it work, and let's look at how they did that. First, it starts out even sparser than the original, with single notes in the instrumental, not even full chords. And when chords do come in, they preserve a similar sense of voicing, like this one. Note how it's a chord like this, not, for example, like. In the pre-chorus, an insistent kick drum enters, adding a bit of drive, as well as some glitchy sounds that would be more conventionally associated with groups like NCT or FX. All of these make it sound like it's going somewhere, but it's still a bit withheld. And then it gets there. The chorus explodes out with synths, preserving the original chorus melody, but enveloping it in a far thicker texture than anything in this version so far, or than anything in the original version. And there's the part where they sing a C natural from an A-flat major chord, while the high synth plays a C flat from an A-flat minor chord. Having a minor third in the voice over a major third in the instrumental isn't all that unusual. It's called a blue note. Sounds kind of like. You've heard it a bunch of times. But having a major third in the voices while there's a minor third in the instrumental is distinctly less common. It's not unprecedented. FX have it in their song Pretty Girl. Pretty Girl! But it's rare, and it gives the song a sense of starting to pull itself apart. In related news, the song is about to pull itself apart. The second verse begins at a significantly faster speed, then flips into a rap break, then flips into a dance break with distorted bits of audio from the rap break, and then goes back into the second verse, but with bits of the chorus instrumental over it, which weren't there before. By this point in the song, it has become apparent that the switch in the chorus wasn't just a contrast. It was a point of no return. It was a change that made it impossible for the rest of the song to run normally. And so it didn't. And then comes the pre-chorus and the chorus at the same time. Remember how the pre-chorus melody went? And the chorus melody went. And now notice how they're singing both of them at once. It's worth noting that Put It Straight, even in the original version, wasn't in standard pop song form. You'll remember from episode 6 of this series that standard pop song form is verse, pre-chorus, chorus, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, bridge, chorus, possibly with an intro and outro. The original Put It Straight has the form verse, pre-chorus, chorus, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, verse. And you could call the last verse an outro because it's at the end, but it sounds very much like the other verses. So it's not surprising that the Nightmare version would also deviate from pop song form by not having a bridge or third chorus. But the Nightmare version of Put It Straight does take these deviations from pop song form a couple of steps further by scrambling the second verse so extensively and by combining the second pre-chorus and chorus. There is precedent for this sort of juxtaposition of melodies, notably in FX's Red Light, where the verse and chorus melodies are combined at the end. But it is abnormal. And then it ends with Soyeon supported only by rain and thunder, which sounds particularly lonely coming immediately after so much textural complexity. To be clear, the point of this video is not that either one was the good version and the other one was inferior. Both are excellent. What's interesting is to look at how they approach making two very different versions of the same song, both of which started from a fairly similar place, but which then went in wildly different directions. The original succeeds by sustaining a stark, restrained intensity throughout. The Nightmare version succeeds by setting up a similar character, establishing those expectations, but then ripping them apart and recombining them into a new, chaotic form. As for the lightning and water, we talked about the dangers of having electricity around water in the very first episode of this series, and yet here we are again with more electricity and more water. The real nightmare was the electrical fires we made along the way. As for all the red theming and juxtaposing, it does seem likely that I-DLE are intentionally making associations between themselves and FX. It seems unlikely that they called their debut La Tata unaware of the fact that FX debuted with La Chata. And indeed, two of the first English words in La Tata are red light. The references are indirect. There are other groups whose style seems more prominently influenced by FX than I-DLE's style is. But perhaps the truest way to follow FX is not to imitate their style closely, but to innovate in this era as they did in theirs. Thank you for watching this episode of Classical Composer Breaks Down the K. If you would like to see more videos in this series, there's a playlist link in the description, and if you would like to see a piano cover I did of the original version of Put It Straight, there's a link to that as well.